We are very delighted to talk to him today. Also, he is national co-chair of Bernie Sanders for President of the United States. Ro, welcome to our studio.
Upinder, great to be here. I appreciate the paper. I know you've written a lot.
We have written a lot about you, yes.
And I'm very grateful. I appreciate it. Most of it good.
Yeah, always good, yes. So let's start with Mr. Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
And he ran last time, and this year also he's a very strong contender. So why Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders has a very simple message. He believes in the dignity of every American. Every American should have health care. Every American should have education. People need these basic things to have a shot at the American dream. And he is the person who's really fighting for people.
What about his electability?
Well, he's the most electable. I mean, last time he won Wisconsin. He won Michigan in the primary. He has shown that he can connect with independent voters. He can show he can win rural voters. So I think he's the one who can win back the Midwest.
So if he becomes the candidate for the Democratic Party and he faces Mr. Trump, how do you look at the scenario?
I think he'll say to President Trump, you promised to help forgotten Americans. You promised to help places that were left behind, but you didn't deliver. People still are paying thousands and thousands of dollars in healthcare costs, and they aren't getting the healthcare they deserve. When I'm president, every American is going to get healthcare, and all of these premiums are going to go down because under Medicare for All, people don't have to pay thousands of dollars in healthcare. He's going to say, you promised folks vocational education. You promised them access to college, but you didn't deliver. What you did is give tax cuts to your friends on Wall Street. I'm actually going to help working class Americans, middle class Americans, and look out for them so that they can get some kind of trade school education, college education.
Also, Sanders has a very strong reaction to student loan. There are some people who really like, and some people say how you can do that.
Well, what he's saying is that we have a whole generation of people who have taken on debt, $40,000, $50,000 of debt. That's crazy. I mean, it's in no other country do you have a situation that to get basic education that you are going to have to go into debt that you can't pay off till you're 60 or till you're 70 years old. And so Sanders is saying instead of that tax cut that went to the very, very top, what we could have done is paid off the student loan debt. It would avoid another financial crisis that was caused by the housing debt, now could be caused by the student loan debt. And it will give people a chance to start a family, to own a house, to pursue the American dream.
So if Bernie Sanders wins the Democratic primary, do you think he will be able to garner support of all the Democrats this time?
Yes. Frankly, I think any Democrat will be able to unify the party because the party is unified in one mission, and that is to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't win re-election.
Out of 2023 Democrats, if you have to pick just two of them, president and vice president, do you think there is any type of alignment there in this group?
Well, I'm for Bernie Sanders. I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Elizabeth Warren. I think that that would be a powerful ticket, but it's going to be for Senator Sanders if he's the nominee to pick.
Okay. Now, 5 reasons why we should vote for Bernie Sanders, just in the bullet points.
Medicare for all, free public college for every American, no more unconstitutional wars. He has had a record on that. Making sure that people don't have student debt, and no big money in politics. He doesn't take any big money from any special interest.
And what about, let's talk a little bit, I also want to touch on President Trump. And especially recently he made his remark about the 4 congresswomen he pointed out for that first thing as a woman and then as a people of color. What do you think of that, and what is going on there?
It's chilling. It's sad. It's divisive. It is un-American. I mean, my story, I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. My parents were immigrants in the 1960s. I had teachers who believed in me, Little League coaches who believed in me, neighbors who believed in me, and now I represent arguably the most successful economic district in the world with Apple and Google and all of tech companies. That's the story of America, an America that is welcoming, an America where you can get as far as you want based on hard work and where you have people cheering for your success. So I think what's sad about Donald Trump is he's not articulating a vision of America.
So now, also, although you see North Korea, you see China. Problem is China, Mexico, Canada, Europe, everywhere. Middle East. He's trying to create this chaos.
Yes.
And how the Congress is dealing with this. And
well, my amendment passed in the House of Representatives in a bipartisan way, 251 to 170, to block any funding for President Trump to get into an offensive war in Iran. And it was the mirror opposite of the vote when the Congress voted to get into Iraq. So you start to see a bipartisan consensus in Congress saying no more unconstitutional wars. I mean, Upindra, the U.S. GDP is about 24% of global GDP.
yes.
China is 15%. Guess what Iran is? 0.55%. Why in the world would we want to be in war with a country at 0.55% GDP? The entire Middle East is 3.5%. So our competition is China.
Sure.
They aren't getting into these wars. They're investing in high-speed rail. They're investing in education. They're investing in loans to African countries and other countries to build alliances. We need to make sure that we are investing in our people and that we are building the alliances to lead the 21st century.
Now, let's talk a little bit about yourself. We have been following you since 2014, 15. Actually, we were in the with the Obama White House at that time.
Yes.
You were Assistant Secretary in Commerce.
Deputy Assistant Secretary.
Deputy
Yes.
Assistant in Commerce. And then your story itself is a fantastic story that you defeated a congressman who was there for many, many years, And so how are you thinking about your future political plan?
Well, I'm hoping Bernie Sanders becomes president, and then I look forward to being a strong ally of his from the House of Representatives and helping us get Medicare for all passed, helping us get free public college passed, helping shift American foreign policy so that we're not in these foreign wars and that we are building alliances and engaged in diplomacy. I'm very passionate about technology and getting technology opportunities into communities outside Silicon Valley and communities in rural America and communities of color, helping make sure every American has access to an opportunity in life which requires technology.
Now, immigration has been a big issue, and President Trump keeps bringing it in whenever he gets a chance
Yes.
about that. So how, for example, Bernie Sanders is going to deal with that immigration issue?
Well, I think 80% of Americans are on the same page when it comes to immigration. Of course, we need to protect our borders and have border security. But all of the folks who are already here, the 9 million or so undocumented, who have been here, by the way, even in President Trump's presidency, deserve a pathway to citizenship. And then we need to make sure that we have some program to get the best and brightest to America so that we can continue to lead in technology, in agriculture. That's what makes us competitive. We can't compete with China on scale. We need to make sure we remain competitive. And then we ought to have a program where people can come on a work permit, work here, and then go back to Mexico or other countries and have a rational work permit program. So there are some very common sense solutions that I think Bernie Sanders will be able to implement.
Okay. Now, as we come to end to this interview, I just going to ask you some quick questions.
Yes.
Like more fireside chat.
Sure.
And just you see what you say.
Yes.
Bernie Sanders,
A man of the people.
Democratic Party today.
For reform.
President Trump.
Doesn't understand America.
Republicans in U.S. House.
Obstructionist.
In Senate.
Mitch McConnell.
That's very interesting. Now, also I want to do seriously talking about for the first time, even a person like me who thought, the U.S. system will take care of, but racism is really coming up very strongly. And we see so much violence going on in the country, shootings, and somehow they are, instigated by white supremacists or, a segment of a population. And this is a time where we just do not want to see the House of Representatives or the senators just sitting and not doing anything.
Yes.
This is time to take some drastic action. And as a congressman, what you as a person you are going to do and think about it?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, the shooting in El Paso was such a tragedy and horrifying.
Sure.
And then in Gilroy, about 30 minutes where I live, a
Yeah.
6-year-old boy shot to death. And then just today, we had the shooting in Dayton.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't know what is going on in this country. And we need to, in fact, my view, I've said we need to get back to Congress, not have this recess, and get two things done. First, we need to have the Justice Department empowered to take on domestic terrorism, because that's what this is. In many of these cases, these are hate, race-based crimes. And just like we have a Justice Department unit to tackle international trafficking or other very serious crimes, we need to re-empower the Justice Department to take on domestic terrorism and have a funded unit specifically on this. And then we need common sense gun safety legislation. There's no reason these assault weapons should be allowed that are military-like weapons on our street. It's, I mean, the cost of it is our lives, of the lives of Americans.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming to our studio. It was a pleasure finally to meet you here.
Upendra, it's great to meet you.
Excellent.
Congratulations on such a successful paper, and I know it's widely read around the country.
Thank you very much.